Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar titled Legal Tips and Advice, Everything You Need to Know About Visas, Residency and Property Purchase in Spain. I'm Rosie, and today I'll be your host. Your Overseas Home is here to help you navigate the complexities of international real estate with trustworthy resources and connections that can provide expert insight to help you on your journey of finding the perfect overseas home. This afternoon, we're fortunate to be joined by Emma Belgum, a paralegal at JLCA. Thanks for joining us, Emma. Emma brings a wealth of experience in Spanish property law, residency and visa processes, and today she's here to offer her insights and help shed light on the legal landscape in Spain. It's great to have you here, Emma. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. Basically, JLCA Lawyers is a Spanish legal firm. We've been operating over 25 years in Spain. We cover all areas of law, but specifically of interest, of course, is purchasing in Spain and also various visa types. So no matter what your plans are in Spain, we're able to give you the correct legal advice to fit with what you want to be doing in Spain. In addition to that, they're all fully qualified lawyers that we have here, and we have a set of paralegals that are there to help you to understand everything along the step of the way, because we feel it's really important to have complete transparency and understanding when you're doing something in a foreign country.
Lovely, thank you. Before we get round to getting started, this webinar will largely follow a question and answer format. I'll ask some generic questions that will likely be helpful to a lot of people, and then in about 20 minutes time we'll open up the floor to your own questions. You can ask questions as we go along. Just feel free to pop them in the questions tab just on the right hand side of your screen. We do hope to answer as many queries as we can today, but if we don't get round to yours, don't worry, because we'll forward them all on to Emma and her team at JLCA. Okay, so let's start let's go buying process. So can you outline the basic property buying process in Spain?
Okay. One thing we would always say is when you're buying in Spain, we would always recommend that you use an independent lawyer while you're purchasing. This is because they have the only allegiance and interest are your rights, nowhere else. The purchase process itself can be broken down basically into 3 stages, which is normally a reservation where you've agreed an offer and the property is taken off of the market whilst you're finalizing to the next stage, which is the private purchase contract or deposit contract. It's incredibly important to make sure that this is correct, because the clauses within this are binding to notary. By this, during this time, your lawyers would normally be checking the status of the property, that it's in the correct name of the owners, that there's no encumbrances. There's 2 different registry offices in Spain to make sure that the 2 coincide, and also making sure that there's no infractions shown with the local town hall, in addition to the rest of the paperwork that you'll need. Anything that isn't provided at the time, we can write into the contract to ensure if there is any problems, which obviously you hope there won't be, that you're able to terminate the contract and get your money back, because this is normally where you'd pay 10% of the purchase price. Once you've gone through this stage, we continue gathering the paperwork to ensure everything's ready for the actual final signing at the notary office, which we can do by power of attorney or go with you, depending on your preference. At this point, you'll be signing the property and receiving the keys, and then it's inscribed at the property registry. What we like to do during the course of this is also arrange your Spanish bank account so that you can set up everything, and then all of the utilities will be in your name from your direct debited out of that account. So you end up with a whole process of everything set up, ready to go.
Lovely, thanks. And is that process the same regardless of what kind of property you're buying, say a holiday home or, relocating?
The buying process itself is pretty much a standard. The variation comes on the type of property that you're purchasing. You have off-plan properties which have one set of paperwork, you have resale properties which have another, and then depending on the type of property, whether it's more of an apartment on an urbanization, or if it's something that might be built on rustic land, then the paperwork varies, but our process is always the same throughout.
Okay, that's good to know, thank you. And are property documents for a Spanish home drawn up in Spanish? It seems like a silly question, but yeah.
No, absolutely. It's an important point. Your deed will be entirely in Spanish, which is why it's so important to have somebody there, not just translating. for you, because you need to understand what it means, not just the words, but what it means behind it. So the documentation coming up to the final purchase, we would normally arrange in English and Spanish for ease of understanding, and all the communications with us would be in English. But the deed itself will be in Spanish, but either you'll be there with us and we'll be translating so you understand exactly each part, or we'll explain it to you beforehand and do it by power of attorney. So although there is Spanish in these documents, obviously that is the case, you won't have any problems in understanding the process.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And in terms of buying your property, starting the journey, what's the best time to kind of get in touch with the lawyer?
This really is up to you. From our point of view, I'm happy to talk to somebody as early as they start thinking about it. If you're thinking about buying in Spain, it depends, things are going to depend on what type of property you're going to be buying, which area that you're going to settle in. These are the different autonomous regions in Spain have different taxes applied. We can go through the whole process depending on where and what you're going to be buying, so that you've got that information before you actually start looking around, so you feel a little bit more comfortable and in control when you're looking at properties. On the other hand, if somebody's already in Spain and they've found something of interest, then we can jump in straight away. So it's always good, particularly if you're thinking about residency, to have a chat earlier in the stages, because there's a lot more to plan. But whatever stage you're at, we're able to help.
Lovely. Thank you. I will just say, as I've just seen a question on it and I forgot to mention it, this seminar is being recorded, so you can watch it at your leisure after we've finished. Okay, so at what point do you become a tax resident in Spain? I know this is a concern if people are buying a holiday home, they might want to stay less to avoid tax.
You have two instances. You are either non-resident in Spain or you are resident in Spain. As a tourist, you are non-resident in Spain. You do not have tax implications. The exception of this is if you are renting your property out as an investment, in which case there's a tax return to be paid as a non-resident just on the income specifically generated from the rental. But apart from that, the only tax you'll have then is the wealth tax, the non-resident tax, which is relatively small. If you become resident, no matter what type of resident that you are, that is the point where you will become fiscally resident in Spain. There is an exception in one of the visas, which is the golden visa, but the rest of them you would normally become fiscally resident and be required to be here in Spain for a minimum of 183 days per year.
Okay, that's good to know. What do you mean by different types of residency?
Residency applications are all based on what you're intending to do when you're in Spain, which is why it's really good for us when we're talking to people to the start question is, what is your plan in Spain? If you're planning to retire in Spain or not working, just to be living off of income or pensions, then that would be the non-lucrative visa, the NLV, which is the most popular, obviously. If you're planning to base yourself in Spain and be remotely working outside of Spain, there is the digital nomad visa. You have student visas, you have work visas. It all depends what your plans are, and we work with you then to see how you would fit into the correct visa and then how that application would work for you.
Okay, good, thank you. And do you need a visa to be able to buy a property in Spain?
No, non-residents can purchase a property on your normal tourist entry. Obviously, there's no visa at all from the UK to come over at the moment. That is going to change, but although we're expecting that to be nothing more than the similar thing that's set up for the States at the moment. So you don't have to be resident to buy in Spain. By the same token, you don't need to buy in Spain to be resident here either. You can rent as a resident as well.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks. We've already had a few questions on this, and I'm sure you saw it coming. So there's been recent rules around the golden visa changing. So I hear it's been scrapped. Is that true? And who does that affect?
Okay, this is very new, and it is a bit of a hot potato at the moment. It has been announced that it will be stopped. What hasn't been, that is, it's not in law yet. We're waiting for it to become in law, and at that point we will know timescales, how long it's going to be and what the implications are. They haven't announced that yet. So at this point we don't know how long it will carry on for, but we do know that as it exists right now, it is going to end. So from our point of view, we're working with people that are doing golden visas at the moment. We had another one approved this week. So those that are already in process and being processed until they put that stop date in place can still carry on. As far as those people then that have the golden visa, again, they haven't specified what will happen in the future in terms of renewals. Now, you get 3 years at the moment on a golden visa, and once you reach 5 years, you're long-term residency. So there's only the renewal once that is needed to be done. So we don't know whether you will be allowed to renew normally, or whether we have to look at changing to a different type of visa at that point. And there are many options that can be transferred to if you're already living here in Spain that wouldn't have been applicable before the golden visa application.
Lovely, thank you. I am just typing out a reply to someone, but I'll get you to confirm it. A golden visa, if you've not heard of it before, what's the top line? What is it?
The golden visa is applying for residency based on an investment in Spain, which is normally buying a property, and the minimum requirement was 500,000 euros in order to qualify it. There are other requirements as well, so financial means to show that you've got sufficient to cover yourself, medical, like many of the other visas. But the key thing about the golden visa has always been that you had the option of, if you wish to, taking the residency and spending less than 183 days in Spain where you wouldn't be fiscally resident, or being here more than 183 days and being fiscally resident. So it gave you the option to have residency and freedom of the Schengen without becoming physically resident in Spain. However, this one now obviously is under question as to how long it's going to be in place for. Bearing in mind, in order to apply for it, you have to buy the property 500,000 euros minimum in the name of the applicant, and that has to be inscribed at registry with no encumbrances against that amount to do the application. So how long it's going to be open for at this point, we don't know. So it's important to have that in mind if you're considering it.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. And you mentioned the non-lucrative visa. I believe that's like the most popular one for Brits heading to Spain. What are the key requirements for that?
Absolutely, it is the most common one following Brexit. There is a basic requirement of financial means that you need to support. At this point, it's 28,800 euros per year, which can be savings, it can be pensions, investments, a mixture, as long as you meet the minimum requirement. You can bring family members with you, again, that they wouldn't be able to work in Spain, and then there's an additional requirement, but it's lower. It's an additional 7,200 euros per person that's added, and that's direct descendants that can be brought in. Medical cover is required as well, which we can help with. There is still a reciprocal agreement between the UK and Spain in terms of medical cover, which was in existence previously, which is if you qualify for the S1 form, state pension, then you can apply for cover on the Spanish system, which is paid for by the UK. And that can be used in the application as well, but otherwise you will need private medical cover.
Okay, that's good. So for people who are either Irish or have an EU passport, do they need a visa to live in Spain?
They do still have to go through a residency process in order to be resident here in Spain. It's a simpler process that can actually be done from Spain. So, for example, a non-lucrative has to be done from the country of origin or the country of residence. The financial requirements are lower. And you are able on that also to work in Spain, which is quite an advantage. So EU members, yes, you can do residency in Spain. There is still a process that you need to go to. I would like to sort of add what will probably come up as a question is where you have a couple where one has a British passport and one has an EU passport. If you have a married couple or a couple that have a civil registered partnership, then we can apply for the residency of the passport holder, and you can have attached residency based on your marriage or relationship that way.
Okay, so this was my next question. So you beat me to it. So basically, if let's say I'm married to someone from the EU, from within the EU, can I benefit from their passport and visa?
Yes, and this is an important clarification as well. We can do the residency for the person with the passport holder, and then there's a separate process once theirs is completed that you can apply for the
Right.
family member. There's
Mhm.
various different ones depending on the situation. But what is important to remember is that being married to somebody with an EU passport does not give you the same travel or tourist abilities.
Right.
There are so many websites that say differently, but in Spain it's not recognized. So you are traveling when you're a tourist on your physical passport. Is irrelevant of what your partner
Mhm.
has. So effectively, if you have one has an Irish passport, one has a British passport, then one can stay here longer on holiday than the other.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you. And that's until they have the family visa.
Yeah, once you've got residency,
Mhm.
then you have rights as a resident in Spain.
Mhm. Okay.
And
Cool.
that applies to each of the people that have their physical residency. You'll have your own card that you can use and travel around with. That's the difference. When you've got a passport, you only have your own. When you have the residency card, that will actually be specifically in your own name, giving you the rights of the Schengen.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks. I know you mentioned private health insurance is a requirement for the NLV visa. Lucrative. Yeah, I was just making sure I got that right. Is that common across most visa types in Spain?
All of them.
All
All
of
of them
them.
will have that requirement.
Mhm.
There are loads of different medical companies that offer policies specifically for residency in Spain, and we can put you in touch with some. In terms of what that'll cost, it's impossible for us to say because it is specifically due to your circumstances and the cover that you're looking for. But all of these companies are more than happy to chat with you and provide you with the quote. Normally free of charge, you can get the quote.
Oh, that's good to know.
Mhm.
Cool. After living in Spain for a while, are you able to apply for Spanish citizenship?
Yes, if you're talking about a British citizen after 10 years, if you wish to do so,
10 years.
you can apply for a Spanish passport. Um, there is a process obviously to go through, but it's important to recognise, you know, if it's not something that you want to go for, that you don't wish to do, living as a resident, you have all of those same rights while you're in Spain.
Okay. While you're a resident, if if you're on a visa, are you a resident? Is that right?
Uh, a visa is the specific stamp that you've got permission to do the next stage, which is the residency card. So
Right.
so effectively, we call it the non-lucrative visa because from, for example, the UK, you will go through the process and you will have a stamp of approval of the visa in your
Mhm.
passport. You then have 3 months in which to process the residency card in Spain. From that point, you are just a non-lucrative resident in Spain or a resident in Spain based on a non-lucrative application, but you will have a residency card which is valid for the first year. After that first year, you have to renew,
Mhm.
which will give you 2 years, and then again for 2 years, and then after that, you're a long-term resident, which the rules relax, and then you just be renewing your card every 5 years.
Okay. Thanks. I got a bit confused there. So once you're living in Spain on your residency card, can you register with the public healthcare system out there?
Now, being resident does not give you automatic rights to the Spanish system.
Mhm.
The only way that you can access the system is if you contributed to it. So, for
Right.
example, if somebody is here, they start off on the non-lucrative visa and they change to a work visa while they're here, which is something that's quite commonly done. And you start working, you register on the Spanish social security system, and then you
Mhm.
can gain access that way. British citizens through the S1 form can gain it as a pensioner, but it isn't something that you automatically get a right to. You have to register through a specific right of access.
Okay. Good to know. Thanks. We've got quite a lot of questions coming in, so I'll head to the questions. I'm just scrolling down to the bottom. Okay, first question is from Martin. He would like to know whether it's possible to leave a Spanish property to a non-Spanish resident in your will.
Of course.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
absolutely. You can leave your Spanish property to whomever you wish. The nationality doesn't so much come into it. When you're in Spain, it is a requirement when somebody passes away that you do have to go through an inheritance procedure, something more like probate.
Mhm.
Um, and the because you can't sell a property that has the name of somebody partially owning it that isn't still there, so it has to be processed. But we always recommend that you set up, when you purchase a property, a Spanish will, for two reasons. First of all, because it's a lot quicker, cheaper and easier to manage for those left behind, but also that you can set it up specifically as you wish to from the laws of the country that you come from, of your nationality. In Spain, the norm is what's referred to as forced heirship, where it's done in thirds, and you have to do it that way. Whereas in the UK, it's much more common for people to go to their spouses entirely, and then after that to children. But there is freedom. You can set up your Spanish will exactly the same way. Obviously, when they're direct relations, there's more tax relief and such. If it's somebody that's not related to you, the further away they are, then there's more taxes that can be applicable. But it depends on the situation. But as far as nationality goes, you can leave it to any nationality. There's no restriction on that.
Lovely, thanks. We love a straightforward answer. John's asking, is it normal to get a property survey done in Spain? And can you make a verbal offer pending satisfactory valuation?
It's not normal, as in normal part of the process. A lot of newer properties would already have building guarantees and such still in place. The sort of documentation that is checked in Spain is quite different and should cover these. But it doesn't mean that you can't have a survey if you wish to have one, and we do set those up. In terms of whether you can make a verbal offer based on what survey is going to come, will depend on the seller, what they're willing to wait for. We can, for example, if somebody's made a deposit on a property, discuss with them so they have access to the property to do a survey. And the signing of the next contract will be subject to that. But it always depends on what you can arrange with the seller. It's not an automatic right, they must hold it for you until then. It's by agreement.
Okay, thanks. Lauren's asking, how easy is it to get a mortgage in Spain?
It's relatively easy to arrange a mortgage in Spain. As a resident or non-resident, the conditions will vary. Typically, I would say sort of like 60% is really a maximum, 60 or 70% mortgage. But do remember that your buying costs would be on top of that, that being your taxes, your notary fees and your registry fees. But there's no problem to discuss options of buying with a mortgage. It's important to realize it does change the buying process a little bit in that first of all, you'll have the additional costs because of setting up the mortgage itself, and mortgages in Spain are also notarized and registered separately. So those costs are usually part of the mortgage quote that you would have. It also requires 2 visits to the notary, one to sign the condition of the mortgage and then several weeks later for the mortgage itself. But all of these can be broken down specific to what you're looking at, so that you've got a good idea of exactly what's coming.
Lovely. And can you do those notary visits for us, like via power of attorney?
Absolutely. We can arrange all of that with sufficient power of attorney.
Cool. A good segue into our next question, actually. Andrew's asking, I've been told I should allow an extra 10% of the property value for buying costs, but he's also been given around 15%. Do you have any advice on this?
Yeah, I mean, personal preference, and this is something that I get picked on quite a lot, is I don't like to work on a percentage. For the simple reason, when you start off with, you have purchase tax to pay on a property if you're buying a resale, which is the majority of the case. If you're buying in Costa Blanca, that's 10%. If you're buying in Andalusia, it's 7%. If you're buying in the Canaries, that's 6.5%. On top of that, then you will have the registry and notary fees, which are dependent on the price of the property that you're purchasing. So as you can see, just from me saying those figures, it varies. If you've got a mortgage, that will increase the cost that you have, which is probably why they said 10 or 15%. But for example, if you're buying in Costa Blanca, 10% is gone from your property tax, and then you've got notary and registry fees on top of that. It's important to realize as well, when you're looking at property, knowing which area that you want to be in, because you'll notice the autonomous regions have different taxes, as I've mentioned, but also your money goes further in some regions than others. So you'll find that you can buy a lot more in some places than you can in others. So all of these things need to be taken into account when you're looking at a property. When I talk to a client, I try to find out where you're looking, even if it's in different areas, how much they're looking to spend, what sort of property they're looking at, if there's going to be a Spanish mortgage, and then we can do a breakdown of roughly what each of those are as a comparison, so that they've got a better idea what the total cost is when they're looking at a property in whichever area it is.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't realise it was regional, like, yeah, the
Yeah,
autonomous ones, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, Isabel's asking, do you need residency or an NIE number, which is like Spanish Social Security, is that right?
No, you don't need to be resident to buy a property in Spain. Yes, you do need an NIE number, but no, it's not social security. It's the equivalent of your national insurance number in the UK. It's literally a tax identification. You will need it for the final signing of your property, because there will be property tax to pay, which will be through your NIE number through the Spanish system. If you are buying as a non-resident, that's one side of things. But the NIE number, if you're resident in Spain, you will need an NIE number as well, because of opening a bank account. Again, it's the number that's used to reference you. So there's no implications of taxes, but that is where taxes would be applied to if they're required.
Okay. Kelvin is asking, are quarterly tax returns for disclosing rental income written and available in English?
They are actual forms generated on the Spanish system in Spanish, but it can be explained in English.
Okay, thanks. Okay, our next question is from Irena. I'm already going to apologise, I'm going to pronounce those place names wrong. We're looking to buy a rural property in either Asturias or Castile y Leon. Sorry if I butchered that. No mortgage required. We would appreciate any help. Visa requirements are not needed as we have Croatian citizenship.
Okay, well, my advice on that would be to drop me an email and give me all of the details of the property purchase prices that you're looking for, and I'll break it all down for you.
Okay, lovely.
As I say, just one thing I would say, buying as an EU citizen or a British citizen, there's no difference to the buying process at all. Okay.
Good to know. I will just say we have got Emma's. If you scan the QR code, you'll be directed to the GLCO website, so you can book an appointment or email the team. Okay. Sorry, just having a quick look through the questions. And Wiley is asking, how difficult is it to get the digital nomad visa, and what's the typical, if there is a typical timeline of a visa process from applying to, having your visa?
Okay, absolutely, is a great question. The timescale in terms of residency applications depends entirely on the type of visa. Each of them are processed in different ways, some are quicker than others. The digital nomad is complicated. This is because you've got two routes. First of all, whether somebody is self-employed or freelance, or whether they are employed by a company. There are points that have to be agreed as to which tax system, social security system you're going to be attached to following, whether it's the UK or Spain. Because of the complexities and the difference in every person's type of job, the paperwork, although the basics are the same, the paperwork can vary quite a lot. So it's what we would refer to as very documentally heavy. So for our own clients that we work with, we tend to work on a 3-stage basis of, first of all, let's study your situation of how it is, which route is going to be best for you, then start collecting the paperwork and then submit. There's 2 different ways to make the application, which is the consulate in the country of origin or directly in Spain. In terms of this, it's often better to do it from the consulate in the UK, because then you're not using up your 90 and 180 days whilst you're in Spain if you're still trying to get documents to submit. But if sufficient planning is done beforehand, then you could do it from Spain. Theoretically, the actual approval period is relatively short, but the amount of time that it takes to pull the documentation together does take a month or a couple of months beforehand. So it is something to plan into your timescale, plan ahead. You can't start that too early. To be honest, the specifics of that, but we do have them approved and they're going through. So, you know, it's a very good visa and a great opportunity for people that are remotely working and wanting to enjoy it from Spain instead of the rain in the UK.
Yeah, very true. I'd consider it myself. A quick question on that. Can you, let's say, like, I mean, my job, I can work remotely, luckily. So I would be able to work from Spain for my company, so like employed. Can you also do it if you're self-employed?
Yes, yeah, it's a slightly different process, but yes, through the digital nomad, you can come across as self-employed, you can come across as a freelancer. It's just generating the specific paperwork to show exactly how your income is made, where it is drawn from, and then where taxes are going to be paid and where social security is going to be paid, so that everything's clear for the application.
Okay, cool. Thank you. We've got quite a few more questions coming in, so we'll continue for now. Jason's asking, what are the requirements if you want to buy and run a business in Spain, which involves purchasing a property, say a guest house?
So sort of a difficult question just to sort of jump in on. If you're buying a property in Spain to use as a guest house, it's important to make sure that you are able to use that property for the purposes that you want to do it for, which we would need to set up. You can then, once everything is there, you can set up and apply for the appropriate licenses, or set up a company if you wish to do it from a company rather than just as self-employed. And then present the taxes from that. So it's a sort of a several stage process. The cost involved is going to be dependent on exactly what your plans are. So again, I would urge you, drop me a line with what your plans are exactly, and then we can break down what the different stages are, what different processes that you need to go through.
Okay, thank you. We've got quite a few like personal specific questions coming in. So don't worry if we don't get around to them. They will be forwarded to Emma, who'll be able to get back to you. Okay, and Michael's asking, at what age does the S1 form kick in? Is it only applicable to a certain age?
As far as it's a UK form, it's
Mm.
from the pensions office. So I think it kicks in when you've got your state pension, when you qualify for state pension. But you can speak to the pensions office if you've. I mean, it may be a case that if you've got sufficient stamp that you'll be covered anyway. So you can always speak to them about that. If they will issue the S1 form to you, then we can register with the Social Security office here for you to apply for the reciprocal cover.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I think the department of the NHS that supplies the S1 form is the Business Services Authority. So Google that if you want to find out any more.
Yeah, literally, if you just type in on Google S1 Form UK, it will come up with the information of who to contact.
Lovely. Brian is asking, can EU citizens get free Spanish healthcare?
No,
No.
it's the same situation. If they're working here, then through that they can, but otherwise they will also need cover in exactly the same way.
Okay. A question from Philip. This is a good question. If wishing to live in Spain on a non-lucrative visa, planning to live off savings currently residing in a British bank, do those savings need to be transferred to your Spanish bank? And if so, would they be taxed?
They wouldn't need to be transferred. You can have funds in the UK account, and part of the information you'd need to provide is like a bank certificate or statement showing the funds that are there. What you do need to remember is that when you become a non-lucrative resident, you will become fiscally resident in Spain. That is not a double taxation of your income, because obviously there are rules on double taxation between the two countries. So when you are presenting here in Spain, you will have to make declarations about worldwide income, about your income wherever that is coming from, including the tax paid on it, and it will be evaluated on the Spanish system. Where people have got higher income, they may find that they have to additionally contribute in Spain. Because here the wages are lower, the quality of the cost of living is lower, and so there's an implication. If you're concerned about it, then you can have, and we can arrange for you to have like a simulation, so you could see what potential taxes you'd have to pay. But just to say, on a higher income, you'll find you've got to contribute extra, but you're not double taxed here.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Alison's asking, if you purchase a business in Spain, would that give you the right to become a resident there?
You have to apply for residency. It doesn't automatically allow you to do so. If you're purchasing a business, then you would be, it depends on which way around you're doing it. Are you doing it directly from, again, I'll say the UK, in which case you have to apply for a work visa from the UK, which is requiring setting up a business plan and for approval with all of the information in order to gain residency to do that work. Another option is where people have been living here a minimum of a year on the non-lucrative, where obviously you can't work, but looking at that time to get set up, and then once they're ready, apply to change from Spain to a work visa. Great. And then you'd be able to use that business to do it. So it depends on your situation, when and where you want it, but it doesn't automatically allow you to be resident just because you've purchased a business in Spain.
Okay. In Spain, is there another route to the golden visa? I know some countries allow golden visas if you invest a certain amount in a business in that country.
There are other options with this existing golden visa. The lowest requirement is the property investment. Right. Others are $1 million or $1.5 million, depending on, for investment in financial institutions, shares, things in Spain. I've got a list of all of these things if people wanted to have a look at that. But to say 500,000 is the most common one because that's the minimum amount that you need to invest. But yes, there are other options.
Okay, thanks. I'll just touch on a few more questions. Let's have a look. I'm not sure if you can answer this, but I'll go for it anyway. George has asked, will income tax be due if your income comes from the US?
Exactly the same as I explained in terms of the non-lucrative visa. If you are fiscally resident in Spain, then you will need to make annual income tax in Spain, and it will take into consideration what you declare from other countries. Again, between the US and Spain, there are treaties on double taxation and allowances. So it would be specific to your situation as to whether that's sufficient or whether you'd need to additionally contribute in Spain.
Okay, fab, thank you. We've got a few questions around what are the average private health monthly fees for, what's the word, health insurance. Is there an average, or does it really depend on your personal?
It really is very specific on your age, your underlying conditions, the coverage that you're looking at. But to get an answer to that question, you only need to get a quote from one of the many companies that offer them. Again, if someone wants to get in touch with me, I can put you in touch with one of these brokers that you can speak to, and they give free quotes based on the information that you provide. So it's very easy information to verify specifically for yourself. But I'd be really loath to give a general amount because it varies so differently depending on where you are, the age, your conditions, and what you need.
Okay, fab. Just one more question. Brian has pointed out that I haven't asked, which is probably my fault, sorry. Are you able to receive your British pension when you're resident in Spain?
Yes. It makes no difference, and it remains index linked as well. So I know with some countries, I think, for example, if you go to Canada, it's no longer index linked, it's fixed at the point. In Spain, it continues as it is. The majority of people here would basically have the pension directly paid to their Spanish account where they're living. You can do it whichever way that you wish, but you'll need to present the documentation, obviously, in your annual income tax.
Okay, fab. Thank you. I think that's about all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Emma. You've shared some great tips and advice. To all of our viewers, I'd like to invite you to leave us a review on Trustpilot if you have found this webinar helpful. We do strongly recommend you get in touch with Emma and her team at JLCA to discuss your requirements in detail, and we'll be in touch with their details shortly. Thanks again for joining us, Emma, and to our viewers, good luck with your property plans. Oops, sorry.